Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of Thucydides, Book 1, the so-called Pentacontaetia, and we're up to chapter 108, which begins with the battle at Tanagra, where the Athenians get defeated. Now, just to have a quick look at a map before we start that here, to get a sense of where things are. So, remember that we left there was a large Spartan army up north, and they're trying to get themselves back to the Peloponnesus. They can't go by sea because of the Athenian fleet, and they're nervous about going by land because Athens is controlling these various places here, and also they've got to get across the rather difficult Mount Gerenia with Athenian forces nearby. Tanagra is up here. There's also been mention of Oenophyta and the Opuntian Locrians. There are three different groups of Locrians. This is the Opuntian Locrians up here on the map. So just to keep those places in mind as we read through the chapter. So the Battle of Tanagra, which was the first really serious battle between Athens and Sparta for quite a while. It took place in 457, and as I mentioned, the Spartans were victorious, and it enabled them to get their troops home via the Isthmus of Corinth. So, genitive absolute, there being a battle having taken place in Tanagra of Boiotia, the Spartans and their allies, Enikon, they were victorious, and there was phonos polis, much slaughter and photeron on both sides. And the Spartans, having come into the Megarid, that is the area around Megara, kai dendra tomesantes, you can see the roots here of dendra, a tree, and tom from temno, having cut down trees, they returned back ep oiku home through Gerenia. This is this mountain range, so through Gerenia and through the Isthmus. This, of course, is the Isthmus of Corinth. Athenoi de deuterae kai hexekoste hemerai metaten machen es stratusain es boiotus, and genitive absolute muronidu strateguntos. And on the 62nd day after the battle, so inclusive counting, probably 61 days after the battle, they campaigned in Boiotia with Myronides as the general. Kai and Machae en oinophytois tus boiotus nikesantes tes decoras ekrates antes boiotas kai phokidos kai tenagraion hotekos perihelon kai lokron ton opuntion hecaton andros homerus tus plusiotatus elevon ta teteke hiauton tamakra apetelesan. So the and in a battle, sorry, I'll start back up here. The Athenians, yes, after that, campaigned in after this battle, so many days, they campaigned in Boiotia with Myronides as general, and in a battle they prevailed. So in a battle in Oenophyte, that's that place I mentioned on the map, they prevailed against the Boeotians, and they took control of the land of Boiotia and Phocis, and Perihalen they pulled down, so they demolished the wall of the Tanagrians, and they took Hecatonandras 100 men of the Opuntian Locrians as Homerus, as they took them as prisoners, as hostages, the ones who were the most wealthy. Well, of course, it's best to take the most wealthy as hostages, because you can then you can bleed their families for money to get them back. And at Petelesen they completed their own long walls. Remember, in an earlier chapter they had begun work on these long walls down to Piraeus and Phaleron. Homologesen dekai hoi aigenetai metatauta tois Athenaios. And the Aigonetans, after these things, they came to an agreement with the Athenians, and so it's tekai, so both having pulled down their walls and having handed over their ships, and taxamenoi from Tasso, having fixed a phoros, a tribute, eston epeta chronon, literally in the time thereafter. They fixed a tribute for the future, for the time thereafter. Kai Peloponneson pereplusan Athenaioi Tolmide tu Tolmaios Strataguntos, and they sailed around the Peloponnesos. So the Athenians sailed around the Peloponnesos, genitive absolute, with Ptolemy, son of Ptolemaeus, as general. Kai and en Epresan from Pimprami, they set fire to the Neorion, the dockyard of the Spartans, of the Peloponnesians. These were not known for their ships, but they did have a dockyard here where they were keeping their ships, and they set fire to this. And Chalkidi Corinthion Polin Halon Kai Sicionus en Apobasse Tesges Macae Ecrectesan. And they took the city of Chalcis from the Corinthians, and they prevailed against the Sicyonians in battle. In Apobasse, well, this is by a disembarkation on the land. So, having disembarked into their territory, literally by a disembarkation onto the land. That's the end of chapter 108, and that finishes off that little section about where the Spartans were caught up north. They've now been able to get themselves back home again. Now, chapter 109 follows on from chapter 104, where we saw that Libyan who had come across into Egypt and had led a revolt against the Persians. And this continues on from that chapter. Hoi dente Aiguptoi Athenaioi kai hoi sumakoi epimenon. So the Athenians in Egypt and their allies, Epimenon, were remaining, were waiting there. Kai autois polai idii polenon katestesan. Literally, and many forms of wars took place, autois, for them. So they engaged in all sorts of wars, or battles probably here. homen gar proton ekratun tes Aiguptu hoi Athenaioi. So at first the Egyptians were taking control, were taking mastery over Egypt. Kai Basileus, no article, so this refers to the king of Persia. So the king of Persia, Pompey, historic present, sends to Sparta, to Lacedaemon, a Persian man called Megabadzos, ekon ta kremata, so with money, hopos, so that, now the genitive absolute here, pes thenton ton Peloponnesion, so the Peloponnesians, having been persuaded, i.e. by the money, to invade Attica, ap egagoi, now the subject of this must be the Basileus, the king, so that he might draw off, lead away, the Athenians from Egypt. Hoste auto u procure kai ta cremata alos and eluto homin begabadzos kai ta loipaton crematon palin esten asian anacomiste. I'll just stop there. So when, now this is impersonal, it did not proceed for him. So when he did not proceed or did not succeed, so when this was not successful for him, and ta cremata, the money, and a luta was spent, alos, now this really is, the Scholia says here that this alos is equivalent to martain, which is a common Homeric usage, so in vain. So the money was spent in vain. Megabadzos and the rest of the money was conveyed, passive, again into Asia. But now be careful with the names here. We get Megabadzos is the guy we've just been talking about, and now we get a Megabudzos. So Pompey, he sends, this again must be the king of Persia, so he sends, historic present, Megabudzos, the son of Zopyrus, a Persian man with a large army, with much stratia, with much of a large army. Hos Aphikomenos, he having arrived, Catagain, well, this is sort of overland, I think, he having arrived by land, so overland. Tus de Aiguptius Kaitus Sumacus Mache Ekrates kai ectes Memphis ex ales tus Helenas kai telos es prosopitita ten neson cataclese kai epolioike en auto eniauton kai hex menas. I'll just hold that there. So he having arrived inland in a battle, he defeated the Egyptians and their allies, and ex elase from ex elauno, he drove out the Greeks from Memphis, Kaitelos, and finally Ecclese, he shut them up in the island of Prosopotus. Now this is an island below Memphis at the base of the delta formed by one of the mouths of the Nile. So he shut them up in this island, it would be a very small island of Prosopotus, and he besieged, understand them, in it for a year and 6 months. Mekri who, until the time when, so just until, Xeranas, aorist from Xerino, literally having dried up the channel, so having drained the channel, and Paratripsas, having diverted Tohuder, the water, ale, to another place, so elsewhere, and Epoiese, literally he made, so he caused the ships, understand, to be on dry land. So he diverts all the water there, so the ships end up stranded, and much of the island becomes, he made to be mainland. So he caused much of the island to become connected to the mainland, we'd say, but just aper on mainland. Caedea pass Pesde, and having crossed through it on foot, Hele, he took, aorist from Hyreo, he took the island. And that story will continue on in a later recording.